All right, you dirtbags. Before we get into this episode, number 94 with Joe Uran at Nordic Companies, I want to give you guys a quick update. We recorded this whole episode, got it all dialed in, ready to go this week, and he actually just messaged me yesterday. And so this is the week of it going out. And he asked if I'd be able to say a couple things before the episode. And one of his best friends, his daughter, young daughter, had severe headaches and just went in to get it checked out and ended up being a brain tumor. And Joe sent me the GoFundMe and just let me know, hey, of course, if it's not the right place, like you don't need to bring it up on the podcast, but wondering if you'd be interested in talking a little bit about it. And of course, I said, absolutely. The way I look at it is, for all of you guys listening, like so many of us are very blessed, and sometimes we're looking for ways we can help others. And when Joe sent that to me and I read the whole story, and we'll put the link in the description here. So if you're on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, you'll see the link to the GoFundMe. Her name's Adley, and she's up in Minnesota, and her parents are Eric and Kate. So again, this is Joe's best friend, and it's their young daughter. They were able to remove the tumor and it wasn't cancerous, but there's a long road ahead. So they put together this GoFundMe and just looking for any help at all. And so I figured, why not just toss it out on this episode, shed some light onto, Eric and Adley and Kate and just the tough times they're going through. But they're keeping their heads held high. Their attitudes are very positive, and I just wanted to start the episode with that. So if you guys are interested in helping out, banding together as dirtbag listeners, definitely feel free to click the link in the description of the GoFundMe. Help out our guest today, Joe Uran, one of his best friend's daughters, as they are currently in a very difficult journey. And I just think it's the least we could do is talk about it on the podcast and help out where we can. So, if your heart is telling you to check that out and to donate, even $5 or any amount of money, definitely feel free to check that out. It would mean a lot. So, we're going to jump into the episode here. I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. We're going to go through a little bit of a different overview style, and then we're going to sprinkle in the ad reads throughout the episode instead of right at the beginning, and just make sure that we're delivering just a great episode for you guys. And Joe absolutely crushed it. So feel free to check that out in the description here. Let me know what you guys think of the episode, and let's get into it. All right, what's up, you dirtbags? My name is Luke Egerbrotten, and I'm your host of today's episode, which is episode number 94. Super excited. Just finished up, as you guys will hear. We had Joe Uran on this episode. Unbelievable. Little over an hour and a half, I believe, of just sheer value from Joe. Joe is a client of ours at Phaser. He's up in Minnesota, and Nordic Companies, as you guys know, you probably follow him on Instagram at Nordic Companies 612, which his two companies in there would be Nordic Waste and Nordic Snow, which you'll hear on this episode as well. We just finished up his new website. Go check it out, nordic-waste.com. So super excited for that, but also just to dive into it with Joe on this episode. He's such a smart guy that has been doing this for 2 decades now with his business partner, Chris. And a lot of what him and I talk about is something that we've talked about on the show before, but would be seen as, this is the way to do it. And one of those conversations we have is having a partner in business. And we've talked about it before. Some people say the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. And as you'll hear in this, we have some competing arguments to that, which is very, very interesting. And Joe's just been such a great friend. We talk about it on the show as well, but Joe is a big supporter of what we do at Phaser. So he came in and did the polar plunge with us. So he jumped with Team Phaser as we were helping raise money for the Boys and Girls Club of Detroit Lakes. So he drove up 3.5, 4 hours, jumped in the frozen lake with us, and then drove back home. And he's just been so dialed in with what we are doing, and it really means the world. So very excited to have Joe featured on our episode number 94 on this beautiful Friday or whenever you're listening to this. So sit back, enjoy this episode. You'll hear a little bit from our sponsors throughout the episode. If you guys just kick back, listen to that. We tried to make it a little bit different of a listener experience for you guys, just to make sure that you're getting the most value as possible. As you guys know, we have our Charlie Huff construction insurance. He's the man. We have Eljen Corporation, and then a brand new sponsor who you'll hear from, Sledgehammer. So super excited to welcome them to the podcast and our partnership. And without them, we couldn't continue to provide this podcast for you guys. So it helps a ton. It means the world when you reach out to them on social media, when you tell them, hey, I heard you on the podcast, or even if you see an opportunity to use their products or services, just letting them know that you found out about them from the Dirtbags. So it means a lot. They're super involved with what we're doing here, and you'll hear from them later in the show. With that, though, we're going to get into episode 94. Don't forget this upcoming Monday. So Monday, June 9th, we have our Dirtbags University. Registration link will be in the description. You can also go to dirtbagspodcast.com, click university, sign up there. There's still a few seats left. We have a rock star panel. What we're going to be doing for Monday night, June 9th, for an hour and a half is diving into how to build a team at your construction company. So not only how to build systems of finding people, building application systems, but also retention strategies from construction owners that are doing it currently, that have been doing it for 2 decades. And then also, how to find these people, where to find them, what different strategies are being used. So we've got a rock star panel there. Our last Dirtbags University we had on leadership, we had over 55 of you guys sign up. We're there for the whole webinar, and we just had an absolute blast. So don't miss this one. It's going to come quickly, and then we don't record it, so you won't be able to access it after. So don't miss out. June 9th, Monday night, 7:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Bring a notepad, bring a pen, bring your favorite drink, and come network with other dirtbags from across the world. It's going to be a great time. Can't wait to see you all there. With that, let's dive into episode number 94. Such an awesome episode with my great friend, Joe Uran from Nordic Companies. Let's go. I am so excited to welcome in a good friend of mine, fellow Minnesotan, a client of Phaser Marketing, somebody who we've wanted to get on the show, and we finally got him on. And he also jumped with us in the frozen lake for the polar plunge. We've got Joe Uran from Nordic Companies. Joe, how are we doing, man? Great to have you on the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Dude, absolutely. So what do we got in Minnesota? I know the ice is off the lake now in June here.
Yeah, we actually hit record. I think they said it was a record high yesterday. It was 90 something. So for May, that's really hot.
I
So
heard it. I was talking to somebody, and for those listening, we're recording this, kind of mid-May. Northern Minnesota and Moorhead, they were saying it was like 95 degrees, which is absurd because I've seen snow in Minnesota in May as well.
well, in true Minnesota fashion, I saw a headline this morning that the long range forecast, which if you know snow don't mean much, but the long range forecasts have like 2 feet of snow in northern Minnesota next week. So it's a typical
No way.
Minnesota fashion. I'm sure it's not going to happen, but
So when you say long range forecast, what does that mean?
yeah, so we like being in the snow industry, we watch a lot of weather models. So there's a lot of access to data nowadays that you can get, and you can look at all the models. So there's 5 main models that predict all of our weather, but there's some that are long range, meaning they'll look a week or 2 weeks out, and there's some that are short range, which look within the next 24 hours. So when we look at like long range, we're just looking for trends and things like that, but that's what they are.
Gotcha. And then is there a company that does that, or is that just the Weather Channel, or?
So you can do both. Like, there's a lot of private weather services now, that a lot of people subscribe to. We have one. We've tried a few. They're out there. They're good. But the thing with technology is the access is everywhere. So,
Mhm.
you can get them all over the place. Like NOAA, the National Oceanic whatever it is, atmospheric, something, National Weather Service. They you can get a lot of their models on there. There's a couple, what is it? It's COD something, like their website gives you a bunch of weather. And then we use something called the Mediogram. The Mediogram just puts all the weather models in a graph format, so it's easy to read and follow trend lines. But those are all things you can access and get weather. And there's people way smarter than me that pay attention to it, but for our business, we watch for models trending certain directions.
Yeah, it's one of the few jobs where you can be wrong most of the time and still keep a great job. So, and so Joe, obviously you guys are in the snow business. That would be Nordic Snow, and then also Nordic Waste. For our listeners that aren't following you, of course they can give you a follow on Instagram. You're definitely very active there at Nordic Companies 612. Go give Joe a follow there. But Joe, give us kind of an overarching model on where you guys are at in business right now. I know where you guys are at, and I'm excited to dive into a few big pieces here, but give us kind of the umbrella model of where you guys are at today and what that snapshot looks like.
Yeah, so really fast, like background, we started in the lawn and landscape industry, like a lot of people do, and then like got into bigger stuff. But for the last we got into snow removal, commercial snow removal, and that grew pretty well. So in 2020, had nothing to do with COVID. It's just timed out with COVID. But we decided to be a snow only company and just do snow. At the same time, we wanted to keep a couple employees. So we owned some roll off trucks, and we were like, let's just sell or rent some dumpsters. We knew nothing about it, and we were just like, I don't know, it could be a side thing. And it grew really fast. So a little unique to like your listeners. We don't move a lot of dirt, but we move a lot of garbage. So
Yeah.
yeah, we run roll off dumpsters. It's growing really fast. It's bigger than our snow company at this point. And again, we're technically two independent companies that operate as one. But so we have the snow side. We just service kind of high traffic retail customers on the snow side and some office. And then in the waste side, again, we rent dumpsters primarily. And then we're starting to move into more common with your listeners, but we're moving into a little bit of the excavation, but primarily demo related. It's just when you get into a demo, there's, if you're going to tear my house down, can you dig my new basement type of thing. So we're moving into that. But again, like most of your listeners probably did more excavation work by the time they were 10 than we do as a company. So we're not big there yet, but that's where we see a lot of growth. And we have a couple other things in the work that I'll save for later.
Absolutely. So let's back up a little bit then. So when you got started, so obviously it wasn't 2020 when you started. Can you bring me back to the day you first started the business? How long ago was that? And you said it was lawn and landscape. So let's start there, and then we'll kind of unpack some more advanced things here as we get into it.
Yeah. So I have a business partner. I have a 50-50 business partner in all of these entities. And
shout out to Chris.
Yep, his name's Chris. So we were good friends. We met being dumb high school kids doing dumb stuff, and we connected. So we actually it's kind of an interesting story. We both worked for my dad in the well industry, like water wells. And he was mostly on the service side, but in 2003 he passed away in an accident, and I was 19, so I was jobless. Like obviously it was worse than that, but like that's essentially what happened. Chris was mowing lawns like one day a week. So he went back to doing that. And then I kind of bounced around, figured out life, and dealt with some stuff. And then it was like a year later, 2004, 2005, that I approached him and I said, hey, we should work together in like the lawn and landscape space. So he let me join on, but I didn't have any money. So, and he owned like a truck and a trailer and a mower. So I worked the first summer basically for free, and that was my buy-in. Poor timing, because I actually bought a house at the exact same time, so that got complicated. But
where was your first house? What city?
Shorewood, Minnesota.
Okay, yeah, good state. Yeah.
So just a unique scenario, but yeah. So then we were there, and we, like a lot of people, we were in our 20s, and like business wasn't our goal. We were just we wanted a paycheck, so we had a job, and we made a job for ourselves. And then probably like 2010, I think it was probably 20, early 2010s. We a lot of people in our space are lawn and landscape guys, and then they do snow in Minnesota because you have to kind of, and you do it to get through the winter. And we were a subcontractor for a large company, and it didn't go well. It went well for a long time, and then all of a sudden it didn't. And we were kind of jobless. So we decided we should never rely for all of our work. So that's when we got into snow ourselves. We did the wrong thing. We underbid a contract and we got it and we made it work, but don't do that. And then we just grew snow more than we grew lawn. We were trained by good people, so we understood the industry well, and that continued to grow. We did lawn care, irrigation, fertilizing, landscaping, hardscaping. But snow was really kind of the thing where we succeeded. So in 2020, that's when we spun off the summer to just do snow.
Mhm.
And like I said, we got into dumpsters like totally as a side thing. Like we spent less than 5 minutes on a plan. It took 1 week to realize our plan was wrong. So, but yeah, so like we were a startup, but not a true startup. I mean, we had money
Yeah.
at that point and access to capital and people and things like that. So, it grew pretty quick, and that's where a lot of our focus is today.
Yeah, and what I'm really excited, Joe, to talk with you about today, and we'll save this as we get into it. But you've learned a lot in 20 years of business, right? And it's but you're still learning every single day, which is obvious. Like as you make mistakes and you just keep learning, you keep growing. What I'm super excited about too, as we get into it, you implemented EOS, which we've talked about a few times on the show. I believe it was about 6 to 8 months ago, probably, and so you're about 6 months ahead of us implementing the EOS, and so I'm really excited to talk about that, and also business partnerships. Because if you guys listening remember, Cole Anderson, Luke Payne, and I did an episode on partnerships where Luke and I at the time had co-owned the Dirtbags podcast, but also Luke, of course, had Cole as a partner in Western Excavation. We did a whole episode on, I was interviewing those two as partners, as business owners together. And a lot of times what we hear on the show and just out in the world is that, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. And there's a lot of negative connotation when it comes to having a partnership. But Joe, what I've seen with you and Chris, and I'm excited to kind of learn more here, is over 20 years, like that doesn't just happen by accident of how this has worked out. So what is different about, that partnership, or, how has that worked, and what is that roller coaster look like, having a partner, the good and the bad, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I could talk for hours on this, but a big thing I think what set us apart is one of the first rules we had when we started. Like we were smart enough, I guess, to say like 9 to 5, it's work, and we work
Mhm.
together, and whatever happens here after 5 o'clock, it's done, right? So we were good friends. I mean, we still are, obviously, but we're good friends. We hung out all the time on the weekends, evenings, things like that. Um, but whatever happens at work stays at work. What I mean by that is like
Mm.
everybody's been in business, right? There's good days and there's bad days. And there's good days and bad days with your partner, just like it is your spouse or your girlfriend, or your husband, boyfriend, whatever it is. It's just the exact same thing, only a little bit more complicated because you involve a bunch of money. And
Yeah.
the biggest rule we had was I might kill you at 4 o'clock, but at 5 o'clock we're friends, and that doesn't exist. So, and that helped a lot, especially in the early years. And then I think one of the big things that really helped us a ton, when you have two people that are essentially leaders or have a vision or a plan, eh, especially like in from a male's perspective, and that's a little stereotypical, but like there's kind of this like goal to be the alpha. And I think a lot of people get in business because like they want to be the leader, they want to be like the top dog and things like that. And when you have a partnership, if you both are trying to be that, it starts to be a problem. And so
Yeah.
from early on, there's things that I'm good at and there's things that Chris is good at. And we kind of recognize those early on. And when we're in a space where it's my thing or it's his thing, like that person leads and we let it
Hmm.
go. And there's things where we clash on for sure. And there's some heated and passionate arguments or debates. But again, like that stays in that room or that's the end of it. But I think a big thing is like being able to step back and let like, keep your ego out of the way a little bit. Like
Hmm.
you don't have to be the guy, right? Like this other person can be. And what's ironic, like Chris and I were both in the early years, we were both volunteer firefighters here in town and for 14 years. And to this day, there's a lot of guys that were on the fire department with us that still think Chris is my boss and that I work for him. And so that tells you, like, Chris came, like, he was kind of like the leader or the boss for a lot of what we
Sure.
did. I mean, he's just smarter than me in a lot of places. So when it came to like how to do things from mechanical, I mean, the kid's like a genius. He nerds out watching YouTube videos on how to build things. So
Yeah.
he's smart. So I let him lead there, and that was a big thing because if you're constantly battling for who's the guy, you're just gonna piss each other off and break up.
Absolutely. And then curious on this too, because you had to clearly define your roles. When did that happen? I mean, if you've been in business for 20 years together, I mean, was that a later thing in the business? Did that happen right away? Or how did that, or is it kind of over time it has developed into that?
Yeah, it definitely has changed a couple of times. So when we started, it was kind of by default. Our accountant still to this day is Chris's uncle. He's an accountant at a big firm, and so he helps us out a ton. And so it was natural he had a relationship on the financial side. And we looked at business in three parts. We had sales, kind of the front end. We had
Mhm.
production or the work that we do. And then we had the financial, everything on the back end. Well, since he was already tied to the financial on the back side, we both did the work. Well, then naturally my spot was on the front side in sales. And that's what I like to do. I love people. I like to talk to people and do
Mhm.
things like that. So naturally that was a good fit. My job was to get the work. Both of our jobs was to do the work. And then his job was to basically make sure we get paid and manage all the taxes and legal and things like that. So
Interesting. So it's almost like a hybrid where you're doing, yeah, the sales and marketing side. You guys are both doing production. And I don't know if that's like a kind of a 50-50. We just need to get it done. And then he's on the financial side, but that's a pretty clear path to like who's doing what. Um, on the production side, is it kind of just you guys are both owners of like, hey, we both need to get this done? And do you clash at all on that side of things or?
yeah, so like when we started, it was just the two of us, so we didn't have a choice. We
Right.
both had to be the people that got it done. And then as we grew a little bit, you get a couple employees. We still were constantly the ones doing the work, and it took too long. But like more recently, in the last couple of years, as we grew, and we've kind of gone through these ebbs and flows. So we grew to a size, and then we shrunk to less than half the size, and then now we're back over that size. And so there's been a lot of like iterations of it, but we both still were really active in the production side or the do the work side up
Yeah.
until pretty recently, like within the last 2 years. Chris has really gotten out of the snow side. Like I kind of a passion for the snow industry. So
Mhm.
I was really deep in the snow side up until a year ago. And I still am very active in it, but we're trying to get me out of the way.
Sure.
Like this will segue into some other stuff, but like we have some good people, and I wish we would have got them earlier and gone that way, but that's what we're doing now. But yeah, as we grew, a friend of mine, he was in a partnership as well, and a friend of mine said something to me that kind of like it was a compliment at first, and then it was like a giant kick in the face afterwards. But he goes, I used to, he's a couple years younger than us. He goes, I used to admire you and Chris because I could go to either one of you and both of you knew the answer to this about your business or about how to do this or how to do everything inside the business. He goes, I used to think that was a huge asset because you both could do everything inside
Hmm.
of the business. He goes, and then I got smart and I realized that's a liability and it's actually a holdback,
Yeah.
which was like, shit, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
But it's true because when you both are focused on all of it, just like anything, right? Like you're never going to be great at something if you're focused on everything, right? You need to kind of
Yeah.
pick your strength, pick what you like to do, and focus. So it took us a long time, and we started to split a lot of the roles a couple years ago. But then, like as you mentioned, we got into EOS, yeah, about 8 months ago. And we hired an implementer, which I highly recommend. But we hired an
Hmm.
implementer to help us implement EOS. And one of the first things we did in EOS in that program, you define, and anybody could do this, you don't have to be in EOS, but you really define like the vision for the company. And then with that, you build out like an accountability chart or an org chart. They call it an
Hmm.
accountability chart. But you define all the seats. Like, yeah, there you go.
We
So
just did ours today.
it's fun, and you'll change it a bunch. But what's different in the way they do it is you typically look at the people in your company and then you have names and then you assign roles to the names. In
Hmm.
EOS, what you do is you build out the roles and the vision for your company in the next couple of years, and then you assign people to those seats. And maybe the right
Yeah.
people today, or maybe they're not. That's a whole different thing. But as we did that, it helped clarify things. So we still felt really similar to how we've always been. Chris is like on the finance side. He He's always had like a better work ethic and a little more drive than me and like to get stuff done. I've always
Mhm.
had like I have terrible ADD, so I'm dreaming about the next 10 big things. So like our roles, I'm in the sales side, but our roles all fit in there. Um, Kind of the way they've always been. So it was a fun exercise. It was good, and then we plugged all our other people in.
Yeah, so I've got two questions for you. One quick question here is, how many employees do you currently have under both companies or all companies, I guess you could say?
Yeah, so the waste side we have 10.
Hmm.
We have 10 full-time people. And then the snow, it's really tricky. The snow, we some of our waste people do snow, but the waste still moves in the winter. So
Hmm.
it slows down greatly, but here in Minnesota it slows down. But then a couple people go to snow, and then we bring in 20 to 30 like seasonal operators, mostly equipment operators for snow. And then we run a semi-heavy subcontractor model as well.
Yep.
I would estimate about 50% of our snow work is subcontracted.
Gotcha.
So we have it's 50 to 60 people out in total during a snow event.
Gotcha. Perfect. And then when you're building your accountability chart, and I want to park on this for a little bit here, if you don't mind going through, it doesn't have to be exact, but like some of the hierarchy or some of the sections of leadership, and also just some of those blocks that you have, I think that would be great for our listeners to hear of just kind of how you guys have it organized. We have ours for Phaser. Of course, it's a digital marketing agency, so it's different than what most people would want to hear, but there's a lot of similarities when it comes to the visionary, the integrator, your director of operations, things like that. So just curious, if you want to go through some of those categories and what you have currently set up.
Yeah. So again, we built this about 8 months ago, and it was a vision for kind of where we'll be by 2026, I would say,
Hmm.
and then we'll kind of revisit then. But basically the visionary, it's not the top seat. It shows top on the accountability chart, but it's not the top seat. It's just how they lay it out. So the visionary is my spot. It
Hmm.
makes sense with kind of what I do and how those things go. Chris's responsibility today falls down to the integrator seat.
Hmm.
And then as we move down from there, we get into, let's see, from the left, we have sales. So we split waste sales. That's my role. Snow sales was my seat, but we brought in somebody last year to be snow, almost GM, we'll call it. But
Hmm.
he was our mechanic actually a few years ago, and he left for another position. And we're super happy, super excited. He came back on last year, and basically we said, "Here's the keys to a snow company. Like, go for it."
Wow.
So he came on. I would say his background's a little bit more in operations. So today
Hmm.
he sits in both the seats of sales and operations, but he has to make a choice pretty quick. We kind of said you're gonna be both for like a year, but then you're gonna have to make a choice. You're either gonna be kind of sales account management or you're gonna be operations. And so he's gonna have to make that choice soon.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
then
See,
we
and then is that operations right next to the sales
yeah,
and marketing side?
yeah. So we have sales, waste, sales, snow. Then we have operations, snow, and then we have, and this is our leadership bar, but
Hmm.
then we have operations for the waste side, and that today is Chris. That is
Mm.
something we're gonna have to like. He's in too many seats today.
Hmm.
Um, he he's a strong worker and he can get some stuff done, but he's got a lot on his plate. We also just built a brand new facility to operate out of, a new building and everything, and that was
Yep.
really I had nothing to do with it. Like that was his project, and it turned out fantastic. Like it was all his, but now he's like he's got 4 full-time jobs going on, so we're
Yep.
trying to. We're gonna try and hire somebody to replace some of these, but the waste operations is his today. Then we did something unique in our finance seat. That's Chris, but typically finance has HR and office below it. We thought that the office person was just as valuable as all these and would have a lot of input. So we moved our office person up to the leadership level, and we
Gotcha.
called it office manager, because our opinion was like they're just as important in all these things. Like we can
Hmm.
sell the work and we can do the work and the finance can do it, but if the office can't handle everything that
Hmm.
ties all that together, like it's critical. So they need to be in all these leadership meetings and these discussions. So we moved that person in, and actually we just hired somebody 3 weeks ago. We I hate to say it, we hired my sister And I don't want her to be known as my sister because she's exact opposite of me. Her name's Britt. She's extremely good at what she does. The exact opposite of me. She's organized. She's
Yeah.
committed, and she came from the healthcare industry, and which is a really interesting world. So she has a lot of knowledge, and she just started with us 3 weeks ago. But she'll be our office admin seat, or she's office admin to be office manager. But that's our leadership team then today. And then as we flow down through there, it's all the different positions below that.
All right, you dirtbags. Real quick update from our sponsor. We're going to talk insurance. Yep, I know, not the sexiest topic, but stick with me because this is important. As you guys have heard before, our guy, Charlie Huff, the man, he's helping out so many of our dirtbag listeners with their insurance. It helps a ton that he is niched down in this space and that he only helps these construction companies. And so I even use him, and a lot of our clients, a lot of our listeners, they've reached out to Charlie just to get a free quote to see what he's all about. But Charlie, we can't thank you enough for sponsoring episode number 94 here with Joe Uran and Nordic Companies. Very, very grateful for you guys. If you're listening and you want to reach out to Charlie, give him a shout at his cell, which is 385-268-9939. You can give him a text, shoot him a call, or you can reach out to him on Instagram at Charlie Huff the Mason. If you reach out to him, just let him know you heard us talking about him, the dirtbags, and he'll take great, great care of you. So reach out to Charlie. He's our guy, and we appreciate you a ton for sponsoring this episode of the Dirtbags podcast. Let's get back into it with Joe and Nordic Companies. Whew, let's go. Yeah. And so then you would have 5 up on that leadership level, and then the integrator and the visionary above that, right?
Yeah, we actually have 6. Yeah.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Yeah, because we
Cool.
split sales in 2, operations in 2, and then finance and office.
Gotcha. And I love this exercise too. And I hope you guys listening are, kind of jotting some your own organization chart or accountability chart down, because Joe, I'm sure you guys realize this, and what you're just talking about is, as we were doing ours, you start to see like, oh, this person's name is in like 4 key seats right now, but it helps you plan for the future of like, okay, that's okay right now, but in the next year, where do we ideally want this person to be? Like, where is their right spot? Because we know they're the right person, but where is their right spot on the bus? And you can start to visually map that out here. And then, of course, like you said, underneath those, you would have all your other positions. Do you label out the names of the positions? Like, would it be like operator, and what would those kind of look like?
Yeah, so it depends kind of which chart you get in. Like on our waste side, so we kind of follow them in 2, but the waste side kind of branches down. Below operations, we have a mechanic. Again, that's technically
Gotcha.
Chris today, but that we have a box there that's meant to be filled in relatively soon. And then as you move down in operations, so what we do with our drivers, we have 4 roll-off drivers, and we kind of have like the lead driver all the way down, and we divide them. We have a little bit different titles for some of them based on their roles. So like we have 2 full-time drivers. Then our third one, he's same thing, but he is also responsible for equipment transport. And then our 4th one, we call it a flex driver. So it's a non-CDL vehicle, and he drives that mostly, and then it's kind of the backup for everybody else. And then
Gotcha.
next to those, we have our dump trucks. So we just run 2 trucks. You're terrible, don't do it. But we've got 2 dump trucks. And then we've got a lead driver. So he handles, because there's just 2 of them, he handles the dispatching for it. We mostly just work for brokers. So a little bit of our own work, but basically he gets the work from the broker or from ourselves. And then he handles the 2 of them, scheduling and all of that, and accountability for those. And then the other driver. And then as you move so that's waste. It's relatively simple. And then on snow, it gets a little more complicated. So we have area managers. We have 4 areas we split into. So we put our 4 area managers there, and then we put everybody below them. And for us, it typically comes out we have operators or plows. I think we named them plows. I can't remember, but I think it was plows or operators. We have sidewalks.
Yeah.
And then we have salt or de-icing. And then those break down into all the different crews. And then our subs, like they have roles inside of EOS. So if a sub fills that seat, we put them in there,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So um, we kind of just got to that phase. EOS, when you start, is really focused on that top level, the leadership level and above, and then you break it down. So we're rolling it out on a larger scale now. But yeah, all of those people have a seat, on in our company. I call it our ship. So all those people have a seat on our ship, and they all fit in there and all have a role.
Heck yeah. And then do you share that org charter, that vision, vision traction organizer with the team, or is it just leadership team, or who all knows about your core values and this org chart and everything like that?
So everybody on our waste side, like our full time people, we just started sharing it a couple months ago,
Okay.
and breaking it down. And it's had positive feedback, right? Like there's always change has always got some negative to it. So there's
Hmm.
positive and negative to some of it. But I think overall it really helped clarify like who, what, where, and
Hmm.
like communication chains, things like that. That was the biggest part of it for us.
Yeah. And I think a huge positive too is like knowing kind of which section you're in, and let's say you hire a brand new person, like who do they report up to? And if that person isn't there, who's the next person? And you can kind of see it all visually. And so I think that's why it's so important that not only do you have it internally as your leadership team, and people listening, like your leadership team might be you. It might be one, maybe two people. And I think that's why this is such a great exercise, Joe, because you could have a 5-person company and build out an org chart. You could have a 3-person company and build out an org chart. Like no matter what, you can still have this and you should have it. It's just your name likely will be in most of the boxes, but it helps you plan out, okay, where am I weaker? Where am I stronger? Where do I see myself best? Where's my best seat in the future? And I think that this is just a great exercise. And I'd love to even try and, if anyone's listening right now and wants a resource, feel free to shoot me a message on the Dirtbags Instagram channel. I'll get a template for you guys and I can send it to you. I have one that I use and it's through Canva. And so you can change it up, do whatever you want. But I'll send that to you guys and you can start to make your own org chart, just like Joe's talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, just really quick, the big thing with the org chart too is you can absolutely do it with one or two people or three people or whatever your company is. I mean, we're a small company, but you can absolutely do it. But the key to it all is don't put the names in and then give the role. Design the roles, the seats. Design the roles first, and then write the 5 to 7, maybe it's three to seven key things that that person is responsible for. And this is the big ticket items, the things that if they didn't happen, your company would fail. So
Mhm.
those 3 to 7 things that that seat is responsible for, and then put the people in. And again, if it's only you, you might be in all those seats. And it might seem silly at first. It's like, wait, I'm all these people. This is dumb. But what it does is it creates this vision and it
Mhm.
creates a goal. And now you know which path you're going to take and where you're going to fill. And as soon as you do that, it's kind of like a vision board, right? Or setting goals. Like if you set a goal, you're gonna get it, or at least you're gonna go for it. If you just stand there and you're like, I want to be better, I want to do more, I want to make more money. What does that mean, right? Like,
Yep.
so if you can like make a goal, make it unattainable, make it huge, but that vision and that accountability board helps do that, and then can help lay out. So design your chart for where you're going to be in 1, 2, 3 years, and then you can change it. It's not set in stone. So put yourself in the seats or your people in the seats and then run with it. And maybe 6 months you change it. Like we've changed ours already. And as I said, we're going to try and hire some more people and change it again.
Yeah, and this reminds me of Alex Parker. Huge shout out to Alex Parker Rock and Dirt. He has the promotion system that he was on a podcast with us in the Dirtbags, and he's been giving that to you guys listening. But you have to be very clear in like labor one, labor two, operator one, operator two, and it just becomes clear, and you're hiring for the position. You're not just bringing in somebody and making up a title. And so there has to be a place in the company for them, and it helps you kind of clarify those roles. And like I said, we just went through this in our company, and we had some titles for some of our employees that weren't in our org chart, and so we had to change the title. Like one way or the other, they have to fit in one of these seats, and it just really helps you run a tighter ship, as you mentioned, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it
Love
helps you
that.
hire too, because like, especially when you're little, Like people wear a lot of hats, right?
Yeah.
I wear multiple hats. Chris wears multiple hats. Everybody in our company wears multiple hats. But when you have that and those roles and responsibilities, maybe you're hiring your employee. It's your second person. It's your right hand person, but they're going to do a lot and they're going to wear a lot of hats, but they can still be in a box where they know their key roles, right? You're going to help with everything, but it's these 5 to 7 things that like you are the man, like you are the person that's going to make this happen. You can help with everything else. That's fine. But those are your things that you're accountable for. And that just helps with hiring, and it sets clear expectations for them too. Because everybody's done it. When you're starting out, you don't really know who you're hiring. You don't know what you're hiring. You're just like, I need a person to do some stuff because I'm trying to do too much. And then you hire people and you tell them, I don't know, your job's going to be this, that, and the other. You're going to wear this hat. And then like 6 months down the road, you've got them doing something completely different. And they're like, this is stupid. I didn't get hired for this. So it just helps narrow it down a little bit and just helps keep leadership and ownership accountable that you're selling the job you're truly trying to give to people. And then it helps them clear, like, this is what I got hired for, and you stay that way.
100% agree. And I think I love this conversation on people, and I want to go into this next topic. We'll say this question's presented by the Snow Jobs podcast. Huge shout out to those guys, Jeremy and Steve. And when it comes to people versus equipment, this is one of my favorite. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. You know, should I invest in equipment first? Especially, you know, if you're growing, you're a few years in, do I invest in equipment first or people first? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but to you personally, you know, what are your thoughts on that when it comes to being quick or being slow to investing in people versus equipment or vice versa?
Yeah, so like right off the bat, my first generic answer is we were way too slow to invest in people. And like a lot of people, when you start out, like you have to have some sort of equipment in these industries. The people you're talking to and the people, your audience, right? You're not going to go dig a basement with a shovel, and if you do, cheers.
Sure.
But you're not gonna. So you do need equipment, or at least access to equipment. Renting is obviously a great thing, leases, things like that. But so you do need equipment, but what happens a lot, or what I see and speak 100% from experience, what we did was we looked at equipment, and it's really easy to do math on it. So if I'm going to go buy that $70,000 skid loader or something like that, well, I can look at it and say, well, I'm going to own it for 5 years. And I'm going to sell it for 50 grand when I'm done because we don't put a lot of hours on it. That thing cost me $4,000 a year. That's not a big deal.
Right.
That's really easy to do with equipment because you can see a tangible asset. You have a very set price tag, and you have a pretty clear sales tag. So you can just say, I'm going to keep it this long. It's going to cost me this much a year. It's not that much money. It makes sense. People are a little different because we looked at people the wrong way. We looked at people on an accounting side. We looked at people as a liability, and not a liability like their risk. Liability, like you look at your balance sheet. So a liability meaning they cost the company money. So if my company has $100,000 in profit, or even $100,000 in revenue, and I hire this person for $50,000, whatever it is, now I only have 50 left of my 100. That's terrible. You didn't hire somebody to stay at 100 though. You hired somebody to grow. And it's so simple, but like gets overlooked all the time, in my opinion. And like 20 years in, like it took 18 of them to like, we should probably invest in people a little more. And I think, to be honest, completely honest, I think a lot of it comes down to ego and micromanaging. Like I don't think I'm a micromanager. Turns out I'm terrible. I wouldn't work for me. But ego is a problem, right? So, and I'm not anymore, but I was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but you say like, well, I'm not ready for that person because I can't totally define their job. I can't fully do their job. Because it was always this like, we can't hire somebody unless we can do it too. There's like this adage, like I would never make somebody do something I'm not willing to do. There's truth in that, but there's also a falsehood in it. Like you should be hiring people that can do things you can't do. That's why you hire them, right?
Absolutely.
Like you build a team. Like, so look at football, right? I'm not a huge sports guy, but like look at football. Like in football, you need a quarterback, you need a running back, you need a defense, and more than anything, you need a coach. And your job as the business owner is to be the coach and then put the players in where they need to be. And I think it just took too long to realize that. it was easy to say like, buy the football, buy the excavator, buy this, buy the dump truck, buy the trucks, because they're cool. They look cool on Instagram. Like they're
Hmm.
fun to drive around. They're fun to show off. Like look at all the stuff in my parking lot. A bunch of stuff in your parking lot without good people isn't worth anything. So that was just like that. I don't know. That hit home to me recently. It was like kind of this realization, like, man, I wish I would have jumped on this 10 years earlier. But
Yeah, I love that conversation, and I love how you brought up football. I'm a huge NFL fan. Go Skull Vikes, and what I like to look at it as, and for myself personally, is like I'm the GM, right? And so I have a salary cap, and that salary cap is a certain profit target that we need to hit to be successful and to keep growing and to be very fruitful in our business. And so, in that salary cap, we need winners, but we also need balance, and we need team players, and we need a strong offensive line, and we need, these people to step up for each other and to build like that locker room culture. And so it all goes into all the pieces. And I think that's where our core values come in. Like it's the same thing. If they're not going to be a fit in our team or in our locker room, like they can't be on our team. And that's how I like to look at it. It's also a lot more fun for me to look at it like that. And we have seen a lot of success doing it that way. And we also look at our raises that way too. It's like, hey, you're not up for a contract negotiation right now. And it's like, it is more cut and dry, I think, instead of just having people come into my office every week asking for a raise. It's like we have expectations on when we have these conversations and when we can absolutely open that up. And so, and also too, what I would say is the salary cap grows, and the better you do in business, the bigger the media deal is for the NFL. And so then the more you have to distribute. And that's what we do with profits. That's what we do with bonuses. We can do a lot with trips and all of this kind of stuff, but the business has to be successful first. And that business, the way I look at it, would be like the NFL needing to be successful. So, yeah, man, I think that's a great exercise to do, is just to build a team that's going to all work together. And I know we were also talking too about it where, you're probably creating a job for yourself for the longest time versus creating a business. Wondering if you have any additional takes on that as well, of, kind of the big difference for you and what clicked and what the difference was.
yeah, and I'll get to that. I just really fast jumping back, like the football analogy, I think is perfect for me. I grew up in motorsports, so like I racing
Mm.
snowmobiles, racing motorcycles, and it was like it's a very individual sport from the outside looking in, and I had the wrong mindset for a long time because it was so individualistic. But every winning team, every winning rider has a team behind them. They have their mechanics, they have their suspension guys, they have their team managers, they have the guy that drives the semi to the races. Like it is a team sport, right? You
Yeah.
need all those players. So that's just a critical thing. Like to build a team. And as you said, your salary cap will grow and you've got money to spend. I'm really big lately. We're developing a new incentive program for our people that like if the company wins, so for us it's Nordic, right? And I call it our ship. But if like if Nordic wins, like everybody should have a piece of that pie. If we all win, we
Mm.
win together. If we all lose, we lose together. But yeah, like getting into kind of business first job for us, like in the early years, like you think you're more special or more successful than you are, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh, my friends are going to work and like I'm going to work too, but it's mine. Like, and you got this like I'm cooler than them attitude. And but in the end, like all you really did was create a job for yourself. And there's a ton of people and again, I think this isn't a negative by any means. There's so many people that just want to dictate their own schedule and build a job for themselves. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That wasn't my goal or my vision. And for others, it's not. But for those that it is, like there's nothing wrong with that. But for us, what it meant was if I'm the key person in, I don't want to be the keeper. I don't want to be the most important person in anything. I want to be the least important person in our company because if the company can run without me, like now we have a business. And like the
Mm.
easiest analogy or the easiest measurement was if I go on vacation for a week, what happens at work? If I leave for a day, if I leave for 4 hours, like those are where you start, right? Like what happens? Can things operate?
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of the difference between a job and a business. Like a job, you fill a role, and that role is part of getting the company doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then a business is really, you kind of step back. And I think your GM is better. I said head coach, but GM is an even better analogy. Like your job is to kind of help this team
Mhm.
by being their support and let them win, let them do what they're good at. And you just there to help kind of cheerlead and guide. To me, that's kind of like the biggest step when you look at a business versus a job.
You are the bottleneck breaker. That's what I love to say is your main job, and not everyone's, but like likely your job and my job. We have other things we're doing, but one of our main jobs is how can we use the business's resources to break bottlenecks in our business and help elevate our team where we can delegate to them, but then elevate. And so a lot of times the bottleneck is us and we're the ones stopping all the progress. And so, but if it's not us, if it's something else, how can we break that bottleneck? And it takes time and it takes focus and attention to do that. And so you can't break bottlenecks if you are doing a million other things. So like you're saying, Joe, is just freeing yourself up a bit so you can help out in those ways to break those bottlenecks so that your team can be the best versions of themselves. And what's really cool, and you alluded to this, is they're studs. They're smarter than us. And that is like a beautiful thing is when they're at their best in their craft and they're doing their thing at the highest level, we shouldn't be better than them. I mean, that is why we brought them on the team and that is why they are here to stay. And it's really cool when you see your team operating at a high capacity like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think help and micromanaging are very close to each other, or they're disguised to each other. And what I mean by that
Mm,
is a lot of people micromanage because they don't want to let go of things, right? Like I'm talking to myself, but like you you write it as I'm helping, but in reality, like let people do their job. Sometimes it's like, no, I'm helping them. But if you were to
mhm,
step back and be out of your body and be able to look at this interaction from the outside, you might realize like you thought you were helping by
mhm.
injecting into a conversation or teaching somebody how to do, teaching's great, but like trying to teach somebody how to do something, or you see somebody doing something their way and you change it like, no, we do it this way, right? There's a safety factor. But aside from that, these people are better than you at what they're doing. That's why you hired them. Let them do their job. And but it gets disguised as help all the time. And I think again, I think ego comes into this. Like I'm the guy that started the company. I'm the guy that was here every
Yeah.
day, started, and you think you're helping.
Yeah, I'll take that a step further too, because I think that's really well said. When you think you're helping, but you might be micromanaging, but you're not sure. I think you've done a great job of understanding this, even working with our team at Phaser, because I know today you talked to Josie and you're just asking, and where I'm going at this is you ask questions of like, hey, is this too much? Or is this okay? And you start to ask the person on your team, you start to ask the people you're working with, is this okay? Is this a good way to work with you? And you literally asked Josie on our team that today, like, hey, is it okay if I send these emails, or is it okay if I send these edits in the group text? And we're just like, absolutely, this helps so much. It's that collaborative experience we're looking for. But I think what's helped elevate you is you're asking questions, just making sure that is this the best way to let you guys do your job, because that's why we hired you. And that's the same thing applied to full-time team members, subcontracted snow removal guys, and just really anyone you work with. But I think just making sure that, are you helping or are you micromanaging? Sometimes you just need to ask, like, do I just need to get out of the way?
Mhm. Yeah, and again, like help is great and teaching is great, and there's a safety factor in everything. But
Yeah.
like you have to let people fail, right? Like I'm a dad now. I
Mm,
have a 7-year-old daughter, and like you want to help them do everything, and you want to try and shape this. Like, but like, man, let people be them and figure out who they are. And the best way to learn is to fail, right? Like, fail once or twice in a certain spot and you'll probably never do it again, or you'll learn, right? People constantly complain about how expensive college is. Like try and run a business, right? Make $100,000 mistake. College is cheap.
yeah.
um so education costs money, and we learn a different way here.
All right, you dirtbags. Wanted to make sure I got a quick word from one of our amazing sponsors, Eljen Corporation. This episode of the Dirtbags podcast, huge shout out to Joe. You're absolutely crushing it right now. This episode is one of my favorites. Uh, Eljen, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. We couldn't do it without you, Charlie, and Sledgehammer, just supporting this show and this episode with Nordic Companies. For over 4 decades, Eljen has been leading the charge in innovative, reliable, and engineer-friendly septic solutions. They have their signature GSF system, which is NSF 40 certified, ASTM tested, and designed to thrive in even the most unpredictable soil conditions. With its multi-stage filtration process, smaller footprint, and lower maintenance, it's become the trusted go-to for contractors who want performance they can count on. However, in addition to that, what really makes Eljen stand out, not only to us, the industry, but especially this country, is their heart for veterans. They've made it a priority to hire and support U.S. veterans, helping them transition from the military to meaningful careers in the trades. It's not just about systems, it's about service. Actually, Eljen's entire tech team, who you'll get to meet as we continue to learn more about them, are all veterans of the United States. And it is just the perfect partner who we want to work with. Eljen, we can't thank you enough. For those listening who want to give them a follow along with what they're doing, especially with us, you can give them a shout on Instagram at Eljen Corporation, or go to their website, which is eljen.com. So go give them a shout. Let them know you heard them on the Dirtbags podcast. Thank you so much for all your support. Now let's get back to Joe with Nordic Companies. Whew. Let's go. Come on. That was so good. College is cheap compared to the make $100,000 mistake real quick in business. Do you have any big mistakes that you can talk about that
Um, no, I mean, a lot of it comes into like when you're starting out. uh, If I could go on a like, so I'm not in our finance seat, but I am pretty analytical, and I nerd out on spreadsheets and numbers, and
yeah.
that's like my jam. I love that stuff. I want to be an equipment operator. Like I can fill a dump truck with an excavator, but like kid in the sandbox is a better equipment operator than I am. So I love spreadsheets though. I'm decent at reading data and understanding trends and things like that. So that's what I like.
Yep.
And when you start out, you don't, everybody's, there's a common phrase, know your numbers, like bid it on your numbers. Like, what does that mean? Right. Like, I would love to spend a ton of time educating people on numbers. Like, how do you find your numbers? What does that mean? But when you start out, you don't have those things. You do your best, right? And you try to figure out what other people are charging. And then you're naturally going to underbid some projects.
Mm.
And it's expensive when you do. So you sell a project and it's supposed to, you thought it was 10 grand, but then when it's all said and done, man, that should have been 20 or 30 grand or whatever it is. Like, you messed up. Critical is that you finish the project because you said you would at
Yeah.
the price that you quoted. You finish it and you do a good job. After the fact, you learn, right? There's guys that get halfway through a project and they're like, oh my God, I'm losing money, and they walk away from it. Don't do that, because that will cost you
Mhm.
far more. But yeah, I mean, education costs money. Like, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to hire the wrong people. You're going to promote the wrong people. You're going to bid stuff wrong. Mistakes happen. You're going to just fat finger a calculator one day. I put a bid in for a big project, and I didn't double check my math. And we
Yeah.
were way off. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was in tens of thousands. I forgot on a snow thing, like with a parking ramp. If you ever plowed a parking ramp, you need to empty those parking ramps when it's done. You got to dump the ramps off because of the snow weight. Totally forgot about it. I bid out to plow the ramp, and then we had to empty the snow off the ramp for free all year. Like, that costs money.
Mm.
And then there's the dumb stuff, right? Like, I backed into a light pole. I left a dump truck box up, and I drove under an awning and tore an awning off a building. Like, there's all the dumb stuff, right? Um, and everybody goes through those mistakes that cost money, but learn from them and pay your tuition, I guess.
Absolutely. When you, and this is for everyone too, of course, like when you underbid a project and you just totally missed something on there and they accept it. Of course, you're gonna go out there and do the job. You're gonna, like you said, you're gonna do that part for free. Do you ever have like a conversation with the client of just like, yeah, I messed up on that. I did, right? And then does that ever come up transparently with them or?
For sure. I mean, there's some mistakes that are too big, right? Like, I mean, people make we don't do big enough projects, but I guarantee like your listeners do projects where, yeah, I mean, it could put you out of business. So,
Hmm.
um, there's definitely, if you, it depends on timing, right? When did you catch it? If you're halfway through the
Hmm.
project and you're like, look, I underbid this thing, that's probably on you.
Hmm.
But if it's the phase of bidding a project and you just missed something, we've retracted bids. Like you have to walk in with your tail between your legs and just be like, hey, like I totally apologize. I messed this up.
Hmm.
Explain your story, explain why, and then hope most of the time people are pretty understanding. In a lot of scenarios, you can't necessarily rebid because maybe if it's a public thing or anything like that, you can't. But you'll gain their respect by just being honest, and you'll get another opportunity down the road. Um, if if you catch it early enough, I would say. Again, same thing. If you get into a project though, and you realize like this is just more work than I expected, yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Like talk to the person writing the checks, whoever it is, the superintendent, the project manager, talk to them and say like, I I missed this. I'm in over my whatever it is, right? I totally missed this. And maybe there's an opportunity to fix something and maybe not. But either way, you said you're going to do the job, so you got to finish it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that's just the tuition you pay in business. And a lot of times that tuition is a lot more expensive than college.
Yeah.
That's great. What does it mean to you? I've heard this before, understanding business versus the service your business provides. What does that mean to you? Isn't that the same thing? Why is it different? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to job business thing a little bit, but it, owning and running a business is it's its own business, right? That's why, well, it's sort of private equity, but that's why really good leaderships that own multiple companies exist, right? Um, but being really good at the service you provide. Let's say you're the guy that's working for an excavating contractor right now, and you're a phenomenal operator. You're the best basement digger in the area, right? Like you can dig basements faster and better than anybody. And you're like, look, I don't like the way that this guy I'm working for does things. I'm making him all this money. You think you are. You think you're making them all this money, and you're like, I could go make all this money on my own. So you go start your own company, right? It's a common path for a lot of people. I'm not happy where I'm at. I want to write my own rules, and I think I can make more money doing it. So you go do that. And you are really good at what you do. That's the service you provide. So maybe it's digging basements, maybe it's putting in pipe, maybe it's septic, maybe it's landscape jobs. In our case, maybe you're like, moving garbage or whatever it is, moving snow. And then as you grow, as we talked about a couple times now, your job becomes not to be the guy moving snow, moving dirt, you know. That's not your job anymore. Your job is to be the business owner. And now all of a sudden you realize like, but my skill set was moving dirt.
Mhm.
How do I now control and manage people? And like this is why we had a really slow growth curve. Like that wasn't our strength. It's been a lot of time and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of time reading, talking to people. And the first thing you should do in today's world is really open and collaborative. So that's
Yeah.
good. But like talk to people. Instagram's fantastic. Jump on Instagram, look for somebody with cool pictures that you like and send them a message. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing the access that you can get. Like these people should charge, but there is really important, really big, really educated people that will talk to you every day. And they'll give you tons of information and they'll talk to you on the phone and help be a mentor. But but that part is really hard. I'm really good at doing X, so I'm going to start a business doing X, and then you get to the point where I have to run this business, and it's just a totally different animal. You're no longer moving dirt. You're running and managing people, and that's where it gets really complicated. And that's the plateau a lot of people hit and get stuck at.
Hmm. Yeah. And I guess too, I'd be curious on this, because a lot of people love moving dirt and like that's okay too. And you alluded to that earlier in the conversation. I think it's, yeah, more, it's just important to look at, where you want to go. Like if you want to grow, like you won't always be able to do just that, unless you bring in a partner that is more, ownership minded or visionary minded or integrator minded even, because when you look at the org chart, like all of a sudden, you are the operator, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're the operator owning 100% of the business, who is the visionary? Who is the integrator? And if you're in all of those boxes, you start to see the issue there of if you're spending 8 hours a day in an excavator, how are you doing the other roles and spending time with your family? And I
Yeah.
just, think, yeah, I'd love to hear also too, just is there a situation in your mind where you could hire the integrator and the visionary and you could be the operator as the owner?
Yeah, 100%. So, um, I think, look, I'm the best guy at moving dirt, right? If that's my role, but I want to be the company owner, you can absolutely do that. Like just because you're the owner doesn't mean you have to be the top seat on the org chart or
Right.
anywhere. You don't even have to be on your own leadership team for that matter. Somebody said something to me, a guy that I know. I'm in a executives group where we co-work group, and he owns a really successful company, totally different industry, but he's got partners and things like that. And he said something really interesting to me though, that you don't get paid because you're a owner, right? Like you
Hmm.
get paid for your job and your job title. So if you're the operator and your operators make I don't even know what they make, I'd make it up, but if your operators make $70,000 a year and you're the operator, you get a paycheck for $70,000 a year. Your pay then as the owner comes at the end of the year in profits, right? Your ownership share is your money, but you get paid based on your job title, and then distributions come based on your ownership factor. And that was a really interesting role because like Chris and I mean, I could spend a lot of time on partnerships and the goods and the bads, but Chris and I for a long time, to this day, we still get paid. Our salary
Yep.
is equal. And it was like, well, if you get this, I get this, and that type of stuff. Like if there's a truck or a phone or whatever it is, and that can get complicated. But really, we should get paid for our job title, right? So if
Yep.
my role in the company like is sales, I should get paid a sales, and his should get paid. If he just let's say he went down and was just our mechanic, he would get paid as the mechanic, right?
Hmm.
Um, so as I'm saying it, like he should be higher paid than I am right now. He's doing more and filling more seats. And if we assign salaries to all of those seats, he has more, right? But then when it comes to profits, I own 50 and he owns 50. We should split that. So, but I think pay your salary comes from your job title. Your ownership pay is totally separate. I think a really good example of it, for better or worse, if people like Barstool Sports, right?
Hmm.
Huge organization. Dave Portnoy, who owns Barstool Sports, Dave was really good at making content. He wanted to build a company. He built a company, he built a massive media powerhouse. But the best thing I think he ever did, if you follow his story at all, is he knew he was good at making content and knew he could only take it so far. And he brought in
Hmm.
Erica, their CEO, not anymore, but she was their CEO. He brought in somebody that was like, you hire people that are better than you. So, and
Hmm.
I think this is the best example of I don't want to be the top dog just because I own it. The best part about owning is you get to do what you want to do. You can hire
Yeah.
yourself to do any seat you want. And he brought her in to run the company. I guarantee her paycheck was bigger than his when you look at salary. Um, and she took that thing, she made them piles of money, right? So good for them. And I think that's a really clear, like everyday example you could look at where you don't have to be the top person. If that's not your skill set, be the
Hmm.
guy moving dirt and hire the people to run the office, to run the show. Like be the integrator, be the visionary, like be the most important person, and you be the guy moving dirt. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think it is so important what you brought up there. I want to go back to for a second. Ownership and your job title. So they're typically, as the owner, a lot of times, especially if we're newer in business or if we've only done it for a few years, we might be an LLC or a sole proprietor where the money comes in and we just take what we need for bills and we take what we need for Christmas gifts and uh, trips, vacations, all that. And it's very messy with personal and business life. The sooner you can get it cleaned up with business versus personal, the better. For us, we're an S corp, so it has to be cleaned up. Like I am an employee of Phaser Marketing. I'm on payroll because I have to be, but we're an S corp. So uh, what my job title is right now is CEO. Like I am running and operating the company as a chief executive officer. And so my salary reflects that. And what's super important is I was just listening to this today on a podcast, but you should always pay yourself what the replacement cost would be if you were to hire somebody else to replace your current role. And you mentioned that too with Chris and like the mechanic role or whatever it is. So that should be pretty cut and dry of like, hey, a let's say an operations manager at a marketing agency is making $60,000 a year and I'm not, but let's say I'm in that role and I'm in a couple other roles. We're either trying to grow out of that or pay myself the salary that makes sense there. A lot of times you might get into a weird situation where, like, obviously you can't pay yourself $400,000 a year if you're making $1 million a year salary. But what you can do is put yourself into your job title, your job position, pay yourself market rate for that as your salary. So that's what's coming out every 2 weeks or every month, and you're paying your payroll taxes on that. And then and Joe, I'm not sure what you guys do, but every quarter, then you would do your quarterly tax estimates, and then you would do typically an owner's distribution. And so what that would be then is like, okay, we've paid our taxes. All of our employees, of course, have been paid. They're on payroll. But then as the owner, whatever percent you have, that's what you would take in terms of profits. And so that is, in my opinion, what really helped me get myself out of the job mindset and more into instead of building an engine for a car, we need to build the engine and the vehicle and the car, because this business is what the vehicle is and can be. And so the difference between the ownership and the job title, or the distribution and the salary, was really, really cool when I started learning that of, the replacement cost for the job you're doing. You should start paying yourself that, because then ideally you would hire that out, pay that person that salary, and then continue moving up the ladder as the owner.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think if you don't do that, you see this a lot. You see people say, well, I can bid it or do it cheaper than you because I have less overhead, or whatever the answer is. And there's some truth to that, but what it's more of an excuse when you see people say it. And I totally agree with you in the sense, like, a good exercise would be build your org chart and then assign salaries to all those spots.
Mm.
And now you kind of build that out for yourself, but build a budget for yourself and apply that budget into those things, right? It doesn't have to be your real budget. Maybe it's just this play budget or where you think you're going, but at least it gives you an idea. And when you start to bid jobs, you can start to account for these things because that's where you want to go. So like, and then the big one, this is a step forward, but really a step back. When you look at, I see this one most commonly when it comes to real estate or where you operate out of. Maybe you operate out of your house or your family's land or whatever it is. So you have access to space really cheap, and you don't account for that. And then years down the road, you outgrow that space and you're like, how am I going to afford a $5,000 shop or $10,000 shop, whatever it is, right? If you never account for that, it's really hard to just all of a sudden get it. It's the same thing like when you put in equipment replacement costs, right? Like, I just budget for the $300 payment that my skid loader cost me. Yeah, but what happens when you need a new one? Because they're probably not $300 a month anymore. So you have to account for like what the next one's going to cost, and then build that into your budget backwards, replacement cost. So I just see it with real estate a lot. People have access to real estate for a good opportunity or a good deal, whatever it is, and then they rent from themselves, but they don't pay enough. So now when it comes time to move on, you can't, right? And then you go to the bank and you're like, yeah, but look at all this money I have. And then the bank tells you like, you don't like,
Yeah. Right.
But it just helps like plan for where you're going, not where you are today. And I just think that helps so much. We did it with real estate, right? Like one of our plays is to invest in real estate at the same time. So the buildings we operate out of, we buy or we built this one, but like that's a different play, but still we own it. Chris and I have a different entity that owns our real estate, and we have a few properties now, and we utilize them. So we could, in theory, the company could work out of those rent free, but you don't, like, that just shoots ourselves in the foot. So now we rent them at market rate. And it works out much better in the long run.
Yeah. And so basically, Nordic Companies or Nordic Waste or Nordic Snow rents from a different entity that you guys own as well. But it's so much cleaner on the books, because otherwise Nordic would be more profitable and on the books, and it would tell you a false number because you guys are rent free, but really the actual profit doesn't change of what goes into your guys' pocket, but the numbers are a lot cleaner because you're paying rent to this different entity of a market rate. Like, let's say that building burned down and you didn't have insurance on it and you had to go rent somewhere, you could do it because you'd already have that budgeted in essentially as what you're paying.
Yeah, or as we upgrade, like we've already been paying X, so like an upgrade is only this, right? But when you go from the hardest place, right, is when you're a startup or when you're beginning, you operate out of your house. Like who wouldn't? That totally makes sense.
Right.
Um, but when you do that and then all of a sudden you outgrow that space, so the city comes knocking on your door and says, like, hey, you can't have four skid loaders in your driveway. And they're like, you got to get this stuff out of here. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go find a place to rent. And it's like, the cheapest place I can find is $2,000. Like, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's where you see like now you just have to invest that money and also you're like, well, I got to raise my rates. Yeah, but if you would have accounted for that from the beginning, and you don't have to account for the
Mhm.
whole thing, right? Like build it in though, and like build up with it, right? The same way we account for inflation year over year, we have to account for growth and the cost of things to go up. So you put that into a budget and start to account for it, and it'll help you out a lot. Us uniquely, you don't go this far, you don't have to, but like we have Nordic Waste and Nordic Snow, they're two separate companies. We have a real estate holding company, and then we actually 90% of our equipment is owned in an equipment holding company, and then we
Mhm.
lease that from ourselves. There's various reasons to do it. I am not a legal person or an accountant or anything like that. You're going to spend more money every year filing taxes because you have all these
Mhm.
K1s to do, but there is some reasons to do that. There's liabilities, there's
Yep.
protections, there's things about that. There's some in some ways there can be some tax advantages. There's some reasons to do that. And then if you ever decide like maybe I'm going to spin this off or spin that off, it's a lot cleaner and other people can follow your numbers really well.
Yeah. And like you said too, I mean, liability is such a big piece. And that is, these all these steps in businesses, they're just steps. So you do one at a time. And Joe, where you guys are at, and that's why this has been such an amazing conversation. So thank you for that. But it's really cool to see because you guys are a few steps ahead of what I would normally talk about. And so it's really cool to see, these other holding companies because it does make sense. If you think about it, if somebody sues your company, that is what company is that's the company that is liable, and that's why you start an LLC from the first place is limited liability company, and then usually you'd grow it from there because it separates you from the personal side. But then what you're doing is a couple steps further to my understanding of like actually separating the employees from the equipment. You're separating the real estate from the equipment and the employees, and it just makes it a lot cleaner. And unfortunate things happen all the time. And as long as you're safer, as long as you have somebody looking over this stuff for you, like you said, it's going to cost more in taxes. It's going to cost more in fees of paying people to help you out with this. But as you advance further in business, and you guys have been at it for 20 years, these are just steps to take to continue to protect yourself and protect the businesses as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely speak to a legal professional or an accountant. Like this is just my take on it, but
Yeah, not just Joe or
absolutely,
I.
yeah, that's totally a reason. But disclaimer: speak to not a legal professional. This is not
This
investing
is not
advice.
legal advice or
Yeah.
investment advice. Yeah, thank you for that
But
disclaimer there. That's perfect.
even full circle, though, as we started talking about a business partnership.
All right, you dirtbags. Quick shout out to our brand new sponsor. As of June 1st, Sludgehammer is officially a sponsor of the Dirtbags podcast. Massive thank you to the whole team at Sludgehammer, based out of Michigan. They are in, from my notes, over 41 states now and continuing to grow. And of course, up in Canada and all over. So, Sludgehammer, this is the brand new partnership that we have. We are so excited to have you on, and especially sponsoring this episode with Joe, Nordic Companies. We'll get you guys right back to the episode here in a sec. Just want to let you know that Sludgehammer revolutionizes wastewater treatment with non-mechanical aerobic bacterial generators, also known as ABG, simple, durable, and built for sustainability. At the core, their Sludgehammer blend, which is trademarked by the way, a proprietary bacterial inoculum engineered to restore and enhance biological performance in septic systems. No moving parts, just powerful natural microbiology doing the heavy lifting. If you're curious if Sludgehammer is available in your state or in your county, definitely reach out to them. They're very active on their social media. Hit them up on Instagram at Sludgehammer Group Ltd or sludgehammer.net. Learn more about them there. We're excited to dive into their company further throughout these episodes. They are a huge supporter of the Dirtbags podcast. They sponsored our live shows and have been really, really important in moving the industry forward and making septic sexy. So those words were Will's, not mine, but I couldn't agree more with what they are doing. And we are so, so grateful to have them on our team. So go give them a shout, let them know you heard them on the Dirtbags podcast, and just dive into that world here. So with that, we're going to dive back into the episode with Joe. Hope you guys are loving it. If you're listening to this and you want to leave us a review, now is a great time as we get back into it with Joe Uran from Nordic Companies. Let's do it.
And this kind of comes full circle now. As you grow, this gets more complicated and this stuff comes into play. And one of the things that you don't think about, you're 20 years old and you're like, I'm working my ass off and I really need help. And your friend approaches you and says, hey, I want to do that too. And you're like, man, this guy, if he's owner, could take so much off my plate, and he's good at what he does, or she's good at what she does. So you start a partnership. Okay. And then you do $100,000 a year and $500,000 a year, $1 million a year. And you're like, this is cool. Like, we both have ownership. So we're both kicking ass, and it would take 4 people to do what the 2 of us do. And then what happens is you get older and some things happen that are really critical to partnerships. And this is just something to think about long term. You are now as you grow, a lot of people get married, right? And they have families. You are now in partnership with that family. It's not just your business partner. Like, you have spouses signing legal documents, right? And bank guarantees and things like that. And that needs to be kind of accounted for. And your partner today is going to be a different person when they're 30 than they are going to be when they're 40, right? We all evolve as humans, right? And it's just like a spouse, right? I would recommend don't get married at 20 years old, because the person you married and the person they married probably aren't going to be the same people when you're 30 or 40, right? People grow and evolve, and hopefully you grow and evolve together, right? But you see the divorce rate's 50% in America, or whatever the heck it is. And I would say business failures are more than that. But partnership is really similar. And now when you get into big numbers, right? And you have multiple millions of dollars in assets or money or whatever it is, now it gets even more complicated, because now you're talking about real money, and somebody might want this or might want that, or wants to do this or wants out. And like, having really strong buy-sell agreements, having really good legal documents to decide who gets to do what when, is important. And more than anything, right? Just, you got to have a good trust in the person, and a good read on the person. But then comes the liability stuff. Like, look, my dad died when I was 19. He was 42 years old. Bad shit happens. He was the sole income person in our family, or mostly. Bless my mom. She took care of my sister and I and made it happen. But it completely changed our life. And that, if that were to happen today, like in Chris and I's scenario, if I die, he's now in business with my wife. Like, that's just the way it works. So from our standpoint, we have life insurance. I think it's called key man insurance, but we have life insurance on each other. So if something happens to me, he is paid out from my life insurance policy so that he can buy my family out right away. We were able to get a large policy. It's not that expensive. We convinced them to give it to us, but like, no questions asked. Like, I mean, there's legal, but here's a bunch of money. You can move on, and he can continue to operate. Same thing. If something happens to him, I'm now in business with his family. I get his payout. I can now buy them out day one and move forward. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but that's the short of it.
Yeah, we were just talking about that at dinner a couple nights ago, and it is because if you don't have that key man insurance or that life insurance, it gets pretty hairy, because all of a sudden you're literally in business with somebody's spouse or ex-spouse that doesn't want anything to do with the business maybe, but they have a board seat. And so if you have that in I believe that would be in your operating agreement. And if you have it in there that, hey, if one of us passes away or becomes disabled or becomes disinterested, or you can have the 4 or 5 Ds, divorced, I forget the other ones, but you can have that all in there. It spells it out where if I die, this life insurance policy will kick in, and then Joe would buy the rest of my shares at a fair value. We'll have a a third party valuation come in or evaluator come in and evaluate the business, and then I would buy out the spouse, and then they would get the money, you would get 100% ownership. But that way you're not all of a sudden in business with somebody that has never been in that business before besides being married into it.
Yeah, I mean, it can just be like death is terrible, obviously, but I mean, it could be something like your business partner gets a divorce, right? And it's a messy, terrible divorce. And like, look, man, lawyers just get paid a lot of money to just make your life hell, and they can do it. And
Yeah.
it can make your life hell and cost so much money. Like, it might shut the doors of your business. I've seen it happen. I've watched guys go to the auction house to try and buy whatever they can back of their company, right? And it was their company. I've seen people. They to have access to jobs, they put a company maybe in their wife's name, and she's not really a part of the company, and they try to do that to have access, and then they split, and it's like, you don't own anything anymore, man. Like, you put it in theirs.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen, and it's messy. So I just like, as you grow in business, this isn't just about partnerships or anything, but as you grow in business, man, like having those outside people to talk to, the legal people. And
Yeah.
it's not a fun game. It's not a fun topic. It's just like setting a will and things like that. It's not fun, but it's so important. Like, I've been through some family, like my own family, and then very close family deaths,
Yeah.
untimely deaths where stuff wasn't in place, and or just disablement, right? Like, things like
Mhm.
that happen. And it's a bummer, especially in this industry, man. Look how many people get hurt in this industry, unfortunately. So yeah, it's just something to keep in mind, that you might be in business with somebody you didn't want to be in business with.
Yeah, and just the extra steps you can take to just continue maturing in business and growing. My wife and I, Olivia, I'm 30, she's 28, and we just did our first will. And it's like we don't plan to die tomorrow, but if we do, we want to make sure it doesn't all just go away or go to somebody we don't want it to go to. And so it's just having a plan in place. Really, it is simple. And Joe, I know you know this because you've done it. It's just like it's pretty simple when you go through these legal docs. It's like, yeah, if I die and if she dies in a car wreck tomorrow, this goes to this person and or this trust, or this person gets equity, or the profits go to this nonprofit organization, and you just get to make a plan for it. But the nice thing is that you can change that plan if you're still alive in 6 months, or if you're still alive in 6 years. But if there's zero plan in place, if there's zero will, there's no plan. And so it's weird to talk about death at 28 and 30 years old. However, we've all had many people become disabled or die in our lives that died way too soon. And I think one little thing you can do to help yourself out is just come up with a plan, which would be in terms of a will, and then on the business side, a good operating agreement, talking to somebody that can help you out with that and dial it in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like at the end of the day, we all get in business or get a job or whatever to pay for our basic needs, right? Maybe it's food, housing, shelter, whatever. But once you get over that, like once your needs are met, we all still chase money for various reasons.
Mhm.
And some don't, some do, but it's for various reasons. But at the end of the day, we're still all doing it for something. And it's maybe for, I want to provide money for my family, or I want to go on more vacations, or have cool cars, or whatever it is. There's it's some sort of legacy though about your life, right? I would say, like, if your life was a book, would you read it? And
Ooh.
and that's just kind of like a good way to like live. But when you look at your life, and you're gonna die someday, right? We're all gonna punch that ticket. And what you leave behind, like, wouldn't it be a bummer to, like, you have this vision, like, I want to donate to my church, to my school, to whatever it is, right? I want to donate to the community, or I don't care. I just want my kids to be rich as shit and do whatever they want. Um, but if you die earlier, you never like communicate that plan to anybody. Like, you're gonna die, and you're gonna be up above, and you're gonna be looking down, and you're gonna be like, hey, all those idiots are doing. I didn't want my money to do that. I wanted it to do
Yeah.
this. Like, I wanted my legacy to be that financial legacy. I wanted that money to go here, do that. And, so unfortunately, you got to plan for those things. Like, I've had death be a big part of my life, unfortunately, and I've seen it
Yeah.
far too often. And, bad days happen.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And this just reminded me too, when we were talking about insurance. I know Charlie Huff, we mentioned him earlier in the podcast. He's helped out a lot of you guys when it comes to the construction insurance side of things, business questions, things like that. Definitely feel free to reach out to him. Awesome guy. just shoot him a text, 385-268-9939. I use him for our insurance too. So like a lot of these conversations I've had with Charlie as well, but he specializes in construction. So big thanks to Charlie there. But Joe, would love to talk more about how I know you're big with the Snow Jobs podcast. I know I think that's how you started listening to the Dirtbags, right? Was it when Jeremy was on the first time, the COO of
Yeah,
Snow?
so I can't remember how, I don't know if somebody showed it to me or what it was, but Jeremy was on with you and Luke. I had seen Luke before on Instagram, probably the
Yeah.
black skid loader or something.
Oh,
And
Black Iron Dirt.
yeah, I think that's where, anyways, doesn't matter. But somebody introduced me to it because Jeremy was on with you. And I was like, holy shit, this guy's talking about snow. And then
Yeah.
instantly I Googled like snow podcast. And it just so happened Steve and Jeremy started Snow Jobs basically
Yeah.
about the same time. So yeah, I was a guest of theirs. It was terrible. Don't listen to it. But um, I don't know, like they're, I don't know, 20th guest or something like that. But yeah, I talked to those guys quite a bit when it was starting and tried to spread the word. And it was just cool to see somebody talk about our world that really doesn't get talked about. And now I still talk to those guys, not as much as I did, or not as, I mean, they're big time now. So,
They're famous.
they got to talk. Yeah, they got to talk to too many people. But
Yeah, you have to talk to their manager first and
yeah,
get through the
right.
door, then the assistant, and then you'll
Yeah.
get to Jeremy's personal line.
Yeah. Yeah, I've spent some time with both of them, like here and in other places, but they're doing such big things for our industry. Like super grateful for that. I'm really optimistic on the future of the snow industry. It's so
Yeah.
young. And then partnered with Jordan and the guys at Storm Equipment. Like Jordan's a
Yeah.
powerhouse in this industry. If you do
He's a
anything with
stud.
snow, you know Jordan Smith. So um obviously like leading the charge there as well, and now the new program they're doing, let's give it a plug, right? Like they have storm chasing coming out, which
Let's
it's
go.
out, right? The glacier episode's out, but that's super cool for us to see like our industry get some respect and like just some airtime, right? So that's really fun to watch and see what they're building there. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and when I can too, because these shout outs are free, right? You know, you and I just talking about it, it doesn't cost us anything. But for anyone listening too, there might be somebody listening right now that's never heard of Jeremy or Steve or the Snow Jobs podcast or Storm Chasing. And this is just our chance to say, you know, check them out. Storm Chasing on YouTube is unbelievable. It is so good. Episode 1 is out. I'm sure by this, I think the second one should be out, but definitely check it out. They're great friends of mine. They've supported our Phaser fundraiser every year. We actually just hired a full-time SEO manager who is a part-time operator at Glacier, and he'll still be operating at Glacier in the winter, but he works for us full time now as an SEO manager. So it was like the perfect hire. And Joe, I know you and I are talking about this a little bit online, but he was an SEO specialist for like 3 years as a day job, and he would plow snow at night with Glacier. I'm like, man, what a perfect hire for Phaser. So, you know, his name's Colton Creer, and he was actually in the Storm Chasing episode 1. So go give that a watch. Jeremy and Steve and the whole crew, Jordan, like Steve Smythe, like everyone is just amazing. And they do so much for the dirtbags in our community, and they give us shout outs all the time, but can't thank those guys enough for everything. And obviously too, they brought us together, Joe, and now we work together and we're recording this podcast. And I know there's a couple more things before I want to wrap up here I want to go through, but thank you again, Joe, for being on this show and just providing so much value to our listeners. For those of you still listening, you can give Joe a follow at Nordic Companies 612. If you made it this far in the show, let him know you're still listening. Shoot him a DM. Joe, you and I talk all the time on Instagram, so I know you're active on there. And if any of you listening have questions about anything we've talked about today, shoot Joe a message, and I know he'd love to hear from you guys. So
Yeah, if you listen to me ramble this long, you probably deserve something. So like shoot me a
yeah,
message. We'll figure out how to do a giveaway. I'll find something cool. But
heck yeah.
just be like, yeah, remember how at the end of the episode you said you give a shit? Like send me a message. I'll find
Heck
something.
yeah. I mean, we're I don't know exactly. I think we're an hour 21 minutes in strong right now. And so I haven't even peed yet, and we're sitting really good. But there's just a couple more little things I want to get into. Actually, they're big things, and I think they're super important. Let's go to our book recommendations. One of my favorite segments we've been doing on the Dirtbags. And I know through 75 Hard, have you been reading more, or when did you start reading more books? And then I'd love to hear a few of your recommendations there.
Yeah, so I'm actually doing 75 hard right now. I was introduced to 75 hard by Jordan Smith. So
Stud.
shout out Jordan for making me do it. I'm super grateful actually. I tried to do it last year. I have a back injury that
Hmm.
happened 8 years ago, and I made it 51 days, and my back said you're done. So unfortunately, I didn't finish, but the 51 days still changed my life.
Yeah.
And I woke up 2 weeks ago. I think I'm on day 16 right now. So like 2 weeks ago, I woke up one day and I'm like, sorry, my dog just took my computer. But I woke up and I'm like, I might as well do it again, right? No time.
Yeah.
So I just woke up and I started doing it. So you talk about peeing, man, you got to drink a lot of water.
So,
It's one of the
yeah,
hardest
I bet you're
things.
dying right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like if you haven't done 75 hard, man, just do it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
People look at it as like a fitness thing, like lose weight, and you will, like no doubt, but that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
And I've connected with people now because of 75 hard. So shout out to that, another free plug. But yeah, 75 hard was great. Which got me reading and also got me working out, which I worked out probably less than 50 times in my life. And now I'm a couple
Wow.
hundred workouts in. So, reading, same thing. I'm not a reader, man. I didn't do well in school. The books weren't interesting to me. I didn't care. I wanted to look at pictures, right? Hence Instagram. But I have spent a bunch of time reading in the last few years, like just back to this like personal growth and self-development. That's the stuff I'm interested in.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, as we move into like book recommendations, I have to shout out Traction, by Gino Wickman. You've heard it a bunch and people have, and we talked a ton about EOS in here. So I have to. It's changing our company in exponential ways. So that reading that book, and there's just little bits of it that talk to you, right? And it's going to talk to everybody differently. It's going to talk to you different than it talked to me, but there's certain spots in there that just hit. So it's worth reading. If you do EOS or you do anything close, it doesn't matter. Read
Hmm.
the book. There's tons of great information in there. Um, I can't remember. There's a EOS book it's a fictional story about a company that's implementing EOS, and now I forgot what it's called.
It's not Get a
Great.
Grip, is it?
I think it is. That's what I was thinking in my head. But anyways, that's a good book too if you want to understand how EOS works. But that was a fantastic book that's truly changing things for us. Atomic Habits, super popular. It's been mentioned many times. I just finished it, and it's good. It's about small changes leading to big results, right? And how to implement them, how to make the good ones easier to implement, and the hard habits harder access to get to them, things like that. And
Yeah.
it's just good small changes, which is a great book. And then my favorite book that I read recently is 10x is easier than 2x. And the premise of the book says like it's kind of like reach for the stars, right? But the point of it is really simple, and it's kind of like a no-brainer. We all want to grow. We want to grow as a person. We want a bigger company, whatever it is. And the point of it is to reach for 10x, not 2x. So in numbers, like I'm $1 million company and I want to be a $2 million company. That's really hard because to do
Hmm.
2x, you're just going to do more of what you're doing today. And that's actually a really hard path. But 10x, you are completely going to change who you are, who your company is to go 10x. So I want to go from a million to 10 million.
Hmm.
Um, that is a completely different person, a different organization, but it's easier because you have a really clear focus and you're just going to change and do it. And the worst case is you come up short. Okay, fine. I got 5 million. Darn.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a fantastic book. It talks about it. It just makes you look at things a little bit differently. And it's not just about money. It's personal, developing as a person. And there's some great stories in there. So there's some cool stuff in there. I like that one a lot. Somebody recommended it to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, if anyone wants to, so I've read Traction, of course, and it's funny you bring those up. Traction and Atomic Habits, in my opinion, are almost polar opposite type of
Mhm.
books. Atomic Habits, like you mentioned, is little changes, is little nuggets that are so applicable today. Traction is a hard read. Anyone that's read it takes a couple times to read. It's a lot of implementation. It's a lot of spending days and weeks in chapters of just like uprooting your entire business. So I wouldn't read them both at the same time. And in my opinion, if you hadn't read either of those, I'd read Atomic Habits first, and then I'd get in a good headspace and start reading Traction, one chapter at a time, and just start to read it as an owner. And then I had to read it a second time a year later to really understand it again. And I know there's a great audiobook that Gino Wickman has as well. But for anyone listening, 10x is easier than 2x. If anyone has not read that, I have not read that either. If anyone wants to read it with me, let me know. We'll do a little book club together. By the time this episode comes out, I'll have the book in my hand. I'll start reading it and would love to read it along with some of you guys and see kind of set some goals together of where that takes our companies and just see kind of where we land because it's amazing when we expand our horizons and you start thinking of the 10x mindset, where you can fall. And if you didn't successfully make it. And I think, Joe, as we kind of wrap up here, I think a big part of that too is like the journey you go on. And you talked a lot about that in your last 20 years. It's like you may have fallen short on most of your goals, but what is most important is the whole journey that got you to this point and what you keep learning and implementing every single day. And I think that just goes so well into these book recommendations that you gave here.
Yeah, I think 10x to 2x, or 10x is easier than 2x really hit for us because like we just wanted to do more. I want to earn more. I want to be more. And we spent 20 years, 15 years just wanting more and seeing little growth, right?
Mm.
We grew just a little bit all the time, just like most people do. But we have people that are our age or started when we do, and you see these powerhouse companies and things like that. And maybe that's not the goal, but we kind of I don't want to say we wasted the time because I learned a lot and we have great memories and we've built some success. But in a way, it feels like you wasted the time. Like shoot for the stars, man. Like just go for it, especially when you're young. Like
Yeah.
you feel like you have a lot to lose, but you don't. Like you have so much time. Just shoot for the moon. If it doesn't work, start over.
Yeah.
And take that with like in context. But
That was not investment
yeah,
advice.
yeah. 10x is either 2x, and atomic habits really are the opposites also, just like you said about traction and atomic habits. Atomic habits talks about the small things and focusing on this small growth and small changes, and 10x, 2x is like, go for it, right?
Yeah.
But what they do come together on is you have to do the little things right and
Mm-hmm.
the core things right. And when you do those things right, that's where atomic habits come into play. But set the big vision and now use those little stepping stones to start building and then go for it. So that they really do correlate more than it seems. And traction, all EOS did was if you read a lot of business books, there's a ton of them out there, Buy Back Your Time or Clockwork or The Pumpkin Plan or like all these books, they're really good. And all of these are very similar. And all EOS did is it took all these ideas, like they're not Gino's new ideas. He
Right.
just took a bunch of really good ideas and made them really easy to understand and how to follow it. The only other plug I'll give to EOS is I can't recommend enough to hire an implementer
Mm-hmm.
unless you have that person on your team already.
Mm-hmm.
The implementer is just one, it's an outside person, which is always beneficial. But they really can keep you guided and make a lot of progress. They're not cheap. Like ours is $10,000 a day.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but not doing it is more expensive.
Yeah. I've heard that from every single person that's ever hired an implementer is not doing it is more expensive. And it was the best decision they've ever made in their business. One of the best. And yeah, like you said, it's a big pill to swallow. And the first step is reading the book and understanding what that is. And you can implement some small things yourself, like the scorecard, the org chart, things like that. But when you're ready to implement and dive into it, like you said, jumping in like that is a great way to do it because it keeps you on. You're invested into it, but then the return is so much greater. Also want to give a plug too. We got the Nordic Waste website up. Go give it a look. It's nordic-waste.com. I know we've been spending some time on that, Joe, and that is turning out to be awesome. It's been a fun one too because it's like it's not a simple build because it was such a big previous website, and so there's a lot of preservation techniques that our team was like working on. Of okay, we can't just scrap everything and build a brand new website. So, huge shout out to you for being so involved in that process. And I know early on you were talking about how you head up the sales and marketing side of the company. And I know our team has really loved working with you because you do take ownership of that and you are so attentive to it. So it's really helped our team put out something that we're proud of and that, of course, we hope you're proud of as well. And just to keep building through the years on top of it.
Yeah, I mean it's been great. I'm super excited for it and thankful for it. We had a good marketing company before and they
Mm-hmm.
were great. I know them, like they built a good website, but we had a vision for where we were going. And one of the biggest things, you actually mentioned this earlier. I apologize, I forgot his name, but the glacier operator that now works for you, like you
Colton.
have people in your organization that speak our language. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to build a website and talk to web people and marketing people, if they speak your language, it makes it so much easier. It's so beneficial because you don't have to spend a lot of time educating people. Like, I just want this thing, and you build it, and you speak my language. So that's been a super help. Like that's a big part of how we ended up here. And I like what you guys are doing for our world, right? The snow world, the dirt world, all of those things. We fall into those. So that's been good. Your team's been good to work with, and super happy with where we're going.
Yeah, appreciate that a ton. And I think that is one of our biggest selling USPs, I guess you could say, our unique selling proposition is what we're trying to do for one industry, right? And what we're trying to do to move the industry forward. And we can't work with everybody, of course, but when we work with people like you and a few of the other guests that we've had on as well, it's like we provide a very simple service, but we want to provide it in a way where it's very relatable. So our team is involved in the industry. We have 74 clients currently that work with us full time, but that is data we can now distribute through all of our clients of what's working, what's not working. And like you mentioned there, you gave Colton Creer on our team a shout out. He's literally an equipment operator. We now have Joe and Colton. They have 20 years of equipment operating experience between the two of them, and they're in their 20s, and they both work for us. And it's just small pieces like that that we're really trying to bring in to bolster up our team so that when we work with a company like yours, Joe, it's like we want to put our best foot forward always. And but it takes a village. It takes our team. It takes all of our wonderful clients. It takes everyone listening to the podcast, and we just appreciate you guys a ton for that. And then last but not least, are you coming to the Polar Plunge next year? You running it back with us?
Yeah, we have to. I was hoping Jeremy would show up, so I'm calling him out.
There
Jeremy
we
has to
go.
show up next year.
Jeremy Jeremy Lindstrom, you're doing the Polar Plunge with Team Phaser next year, Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I do not have the date on me, but it is in February, so it is always the coldest month of the year. But yeah, dude, appreciate you joining our team for that. Appreciate you being on this podcast and adding so much value. Excited to keep her rolling here. Excited to get this episode out. And last piece is any are there any other ways people can get a hold of you, get in touch with you? Any last comments you want to make as we wrap up the show here?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't, I like to talk. I like people, if you can't tell. So if people want to reach out, Instagram's great. I do have a personal Instagram. You can find it. It's not super active, but I'm working on bringing more of my personal stuff to that versus our business one. Let's say it. It's Joe U, the letter U dot 307. So if you ever raced anything, you'll understand why the numbers are at the end. But and then LinkedIn. I so badly wish I was good at LinkedIn and I wish I was active on LinkedIn. I'm there. Um, there's nothing cool there, but I am there and I get messages and connections there. It's one of my 2025 missions is to try and be better at LinkedIn, but it's there. Facebook, I think I have a Facebook, but I used to use it for business stuff and marketplace. So you can reach out in any of those. But I'm most active on Instagram. You can find it there. I think we have a TikTok too, but I need to hire a social media person. So
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I'd say definitely reach out to Joe. Let him know you listened this far. Joe, we can't thank you enough for being on the Dirtbags podcast. Excited for episode 2 coming the following year. We'll get updates on kind of where you guys are at in business, how this whole EOS journey is going, and we'll just keep it going from there. So thank you again, and we'll see you on the next one.
yeah, thank you.